Let's get into it. Sold Not For Sale podcast. We got Joe Rogan and Kid Rock having a bit of a debate about the Israel-Palestine conflict. Now, Kid Rock says some wild things about what Israel's doing. Really wild. And I noticed that when people are, musicians, comedians, YouTubers, politicians, they only know so much about war, and their opinion far outweighs their actual knowledge when it comes to war. So I'm going to be playing what Kid Rock was saying, and Joe Rogan disputes it a bit. He could have pushed a bit harder in my opinion, because what Kid Rock says is crazy. I'm going to show that to you in a second, but I'm going to show you some other stuff. We got Joe Rogan. Then I'm going to show you Vivek's opinion on the Israel-Palestine conflict, and there's a reason I'm going to show you this very short clip. Then we're going to get Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson recently did an interview, so this opinion is very fresh. This is not an old video. This is a super new video that you haven't seen for sure. Tucker Carlson talking about his opinion. He's a very America First type of guy, so he's going to be giving that perspective. And then we're going to move on to a clip of two guys who actually understand war. They actually understand what it means to be in war, to see war, to feel war, and to deal death. Tim Kennedy and Jocko. And what I play for you in this last clip is so powerful. Do not miss this last clip. It is so powerful. It's Jocko and Tim Kennedy, and they're talking about civilians and Tim Kennedy's encounter with actually doing something to some civilians by mistake. So I just want to play all sides. One guy talking about civilian deaths and how you just got to kill civilians, and some other guys actually going through that and how it actually affects them mentally and what that's actually like. Let's get into it. Don't forget about IamCoachColin.com. We got Sold Not For Sale. We got different variations. We got Public Enemy #1. We got anti-mainstream stuff, We the People stuff, presidential mugshots, certified pure blood stuff. Do not miss it. Discount code is I am Coach Colin, all capital letters, all one word, one L in the name Colin. Let's get to this Rogan clip.
The Vietnam War is one of the most perplexing of all wars, because today no one thinks we should have gone, and yet they do the exact same thing today that they did back then. The way they just decide that people from this country need to be flying overseas to go shoot at people they don't know, and it's all based on a lie, and no one ever goes to jail for that lie.
It's insane.
And everything evolves, man. Everything evolves. Like computers back then were terrible. Now they're really good. If they were really terrible at the way they were corruptly running the world back then and made it real obvious, they're better at it now.
Yeah, what's the end game?
I don't know, man.
Like, I'm fine. I can ride it out. I'm
Right.
blessed. I'm like, all right, what about my grandchildren? Like, fuck.
I know. I go back and forth from being optimistic to really pessimistic. I go back and forth. Like, I'll start thinking, you know what? I'm pretty sure we're going to pull ahead and figure this out. And then I go, yeah, stupid. That's because you live in Texas and you don't live in Gaza. If you lived in Gaza, you would be convinced that it's the end of the world. Right? Because it is the end of the world in one place. In that spot, it's the end of the world. But where you are, it's not. And you got to look at it that way. And when I look at it that way, I'm like,
the only
ooh.
wars we won were the fucking ones we were the most brutal motherfuckers on the planet. Which I don't disagree with what Israel's doing. It's like, they should just go in there and be like, you know what? We want our hostages back. If we don't have them back, clock starts now in fucking 24 hours. We're going to start bombing motherfuckers and killing fucking civilians. 30, 40,000 a fucking time. So you civilians better fucking pack up and fucking get these fucking motherfuckers and you go against Hamas. You fucking go against them. We're not playing fucking games with you. But that's the only thing people understand. This is what happened in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Boom. Just wiped out. They're like, oh, yes, we don't have Supreme Leader anymore. We did not know you had such big bombs.
Yeah, but everybody has big bombs now. The problem is you use a big bomb. You set a precedent that they can use a big bomb.
They don't have one.
Well, they don't, but they're allies too.
Then we
That's
bomb
the real
fuck
problem.
out of them. Someone's going to learn.
Yeah, but
you gotta get your ass beat hard enough.
You can't just nuclear bomb people.
I didn't say nuke 'em.
Nuclear bomb you back.
No, I didn't say nuke 'em.
Okay, you said Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I thought you meant it like that.
No, I was saying that just the brute force of strength used in those
Yeah, but
conflicts.
even a conventional bombing campaign, if you want to do that somewhere, they can do that to your place. And this is what we have to
Fuck
avoid.
around and find out?
Yeah, until someone launches nukes. And then we have our civilization is over. The world as you know it ceases to exist. There is no more electricity. Whatever tools you have are things you find. And a small percentage of us are going to make it to breed and then make new kids.
I like how
and
you
then
said
go
us.
out into the world.
I like you
There's
said,
very few people that are going to live, man.
well, it's like me and you could probably
Maybe.
figure it out.
Yeah. I have chickens too. I have elk in the freezer too. But that
You can
freezer's
gut-
not
you
going to
can
stay
gut-
on.
You can gut an elk.
I've got an elk.
Yeah.
But that freezer's not going to stay on. So I'm going to lose most of my meat. Unless I turn it into jerky. You're going to have to do something to figure out how to fucking get by because the world is going to be different. You know, you're not going to have any electricity forever. For the rest of your life, there'll be no electricity.
Just throwing paint at the wall, but what if we empower the people of Palestine, who could be good people? I don't know.
Just
But
arm
last
them?
I checked, most of these motherfuckers hate us. And I'm not saying all the people do. There's probably a lot that don't. Just like in Iran, the population is, because of the Iraq war, there's so many under 50 there. That's like the majority.
The thing
of
is,
them.
these guys don't have access to other information outside of where they live. And then on top
Fucking
of that, they're
Elon,
being
send the
run.
Starlink. We'll send them some fucking guns. Fuck, let's go.
The problem is, most of them would be so opposed to Israel that they would want to use those guns to go attack Israel.
Well, then
Especially
now we have due reason to fuck them all up.
Yeah, but if you think about you're a kid and you don't know why there's a conflict between Palestine and Israel,
It's
and you're
fucking
living in
war.
Palestine, and then they start bombing,
It's
and then they
war.
kill your mom.
It's
Yeah, but you didn't
fucking
do,
war.
but you didn't do anything.
It sounds like Bud Light.
And then you get guns. You're going to go want to attack people. You're going to want to avenge them. You're going to want to join whatever group, whatever
So why did
terrorist
World
group.
War II end?
Well, why did World War II start?
Checkmate.
You got a dude who's fucking methed up. You got a Adolf Hitler, methed up, charismatic dude that wants to take over the world. That's how it started. You know, how did it end? Nuclear bombs. But it also ended through attrition. You know, at the end of it, like the devastation on both sides was so horrible.
Terrible. But where was the end? What was the
Hiroshima and
alternative?
Nagasaki.
No, but
Yeah.
what was the alternative?
Well, that's that case. You know, the thing about whenever you're bombing cities, like
What
you're
if that was your
killing,
house? What if that was your house? Let's call your house Israel, and your neighbors are Palestine.
Okay.
Those motherfuckers you got a family of 4. They come over and fucking take out 2 of them in the fucking worst way. Are you really gonna worry about what type of force you're using at your neighbors?
No, you definitely
Well, the wife
wouldn't.
didn't have anything to do with it. We got to make sure she's okay and get some aid. This and there's no, I'm sorry, man. This is fucking war. It's terrible. It's the worst thing on earth. I'm a peaceful man.
Right, but you're not supposed to pick civilian targets. That's actually a
You
war
can't fight
crime.
war like that.
But
When
you're not supposed
they're
to pick
hiding in civilian targets.
They are. So that's where the
They're
Mossad
in
have been able
hospitals.
to
They
get
got
into
trenches
hospitals.
fucking underneath. They got operation centers.
They killed those dudes
And all we can
the
do is
other
go
day.
by the reporting. I get it, but at some point you got to believe something, right?
No, I definitely do. They definitely seem to be doing that. But also, if you're a person who's born in Palestine, you're fucked. You're under their control. It's not
Yeah.
your fault.
By birth, you're fucked.
Yeah, but those aren't our enemy. And the thing is, like what you were saying, get them cell phones, get them the internet, get them armed. If you get them armed, they're not going to really know how to use it. They're going to also, unless
Very
they're
true.
joining those military groups, and then they're also going to be indoctrinated at a young age by those groups, I would imagine, especially now with all the bombing that's been
You
happening
just
in
came
Gaza.
full circle to my point.
I'm not opposed to what you're saying.
There's no alternative.
I'm not saying that I'm opposed to what you're saying. What I'm saying is that, what you're saying is it could be taken as like a callous thing to that it's just going to have to be how it is, that we have to kill women and children.
I wish there was an alternative.
Well,
And I don't know everything on this, by the way.
I don't know everything on this either. But I
doubt
do
they're
know.
sitting up in Congress going hey, we better listen real close to Kid Rock. He's got this figured out.
I'm just not willing to accept that the only way human beings can resolve things in 2024 is to bomb each other out of existence.
Oh, fuck, believe me.
It's just the whole thing is so fucked. The whole
reality
Palestine,
sets in.
Israel thing is so fucked.
If everybody in the world was willing to give up their fucking guns and weapons, okay. Never gonna fucking happen.
Well, no one.
So fucking why we don't
no
even
one
bring
would
it up.
agree to that just because you're always going to need. You're going to assume you're going to need to hunt things.
There's
You're
cults.
saying that you're going to let the animals just go wild, then bears and deer overpopulate everywhere. You're never going to kill any of them
Did you see that?
anymore,
Did you see that one? Fucking just grab
Guns,
fucker
bro.
by the antlers. Just
dude. Yeah, if you live near moose, you better have a gun. Bitch.
oh my god, they're fucking mean.
They will stomp you to death.
Wow.
So they switched topic, obviously. Now, again, here's one thing that I'm really surprised about in regards to Kid Rock. I'm surprised he doesn't have more of an America First attitude. I'm surprised he has such an opinion on that. And he's not just like, hey, what about the border? Fentanyl crisis, Kensington, Philadelphia. The guy's from Detroit. What? I don't know. I would have figured he would have more of an opinion towards that stuff and money, aid, attention going there, just because he's this all-American guy, right? I don't know. Very interesting. And also interesting because he is friends with Trump, talks to Trump on a daily, not a daily basis, but talks to Trump on a regular basis, golfs with him on a regular basis. So you'd think that he would kind of know how Trump would think of it, because Trump is in the lane of just have people stop dying. Like, peace as quick as possible. I mean, as much as a lot of people want to deny it, he is the anti-war president. He just is. There's no wars. He stops wars as quick as he can. He brings peace as quick as he can. He's said it time and time again. He likes to bring peace through strength, and the strength is showing them that he can do what he needs to do if that's what it comes to, but he'd rather not. And, so I'm surprised that he doesn't have that same, like, if that's your boy, you should kind of be talking to him about this kind of stuff so you can get a proper perspective. Now, again, Kid Rock doesn't know anything about what he's talking about, and he knows that. It's just something that I noticed a lot of people were getting into. A lot of people were like, how could Kid Rock say that? And I do think it's kind of, I think it's really messed up that he's saying that's just what they should do. 30, 40,000 civilians at a time. The most skilled people, the most seasoned war veterans don't even think that way. They know that casualties are going to come up. Some are going to be civilians, but they don't aim for that. Not at all. They want to avoid that as much as possible, but they know that it's going to happen. He's kind of talking, Kid Rock's talking like he's been hanging out with Lindsey Graham. He's like, Lockheed Martin just needs more sales. We gotta blow them up. 30, 40,000 at a time. BlackRock needs to build buildings. Come on, let's go. We got to demolish these buildings so BlackRock can build them up and own that whole place. And then we need Lockheed Martin to just nuke all of that down. BlackRock builds it up again, and we make money. That's my Lindsey Graham impression. But yeah, it's very interesting that he would say something like that. Kind of, honestly, like, as he was talking, I'm like, this guy's like an Israel shill, and this is coming from somebody. I've exposed my biases when it comes to this whole conflict. I have many friends. I grew up in a Jewish neighborhood, so I have many friends. I grew up Crown Heights, so I have many friends who are Jewish, and I have many friends who live in Israel, but I don't ignore what's going on in Gaza. The place is destroyed. It is destroyed. Terrible what happened on October 7th, but that place is destroyed. It is crazy. It looks like rubble. It just looks like destruction. It looks like as if a bobcat just came and just tore up buildings left and right. That's what it looks like. It's wild. It's wild. And it can't continue. Something has to, that's why I really want to see Trump in office, because Trump's going to bring about peace. Trump's not going to be like, keep on leveling the place. Trump is going to be like, this stops now. That's it. It stops now. And he'll stop it for sure. But again, I'd say that just to say, I have biases in this whole thing, and even I can see both sides of this. I want my friends to be able to go to Israel and come back and, not die. I had a friend that actually called me, and showed me the Iron Dome, showed me the missiles that would have hit him if it weren't for the Iron Dome. And then he had to spend 48 hours in a bomb shelter with his family. I've seen it, but at the same time, you can't ignore what that place looks like now, what Gaza looks like. It's leveled, man. So for Kid Rock to just say that, kind of heartless, but like not even heartless, it's just ignorant. That's all. So we're going to be playing Vivek's take on this, because I like his take on this. And then we're going to be playing Tucker Carlson's, and then we're going to go on to some people who really know about war. And I'm telling you, this story is just so impactful. I really want you guys to hear it. So let's get into this first. Short clip.
Full confidence that if left unrestrained, the IDF will be able to get the job done of defending Israel. I know they can do it. I personally hope for a successful in-and-out operation. I would love nothing more than for the IDF to put the heads of the top 100 Hamas leaders on stakes and line them up on the Israel-Gaza border as a sign that October 7, 2023 will never happen again, and then to use all of those saved resources to build the border defenses of the future.
Now, see, that's Vivek's take. The reason that I like his take, and I've heard him talk deeper about this, is because he says that there should be boots on the ground and they should just find the people who are Hamas. Doesn't matter if they have civilian shields or any of that stuff. Doesn't matter where they're held up. Find them and take them out. Extract them. Take them out. That's exactly what should be happening. And I agree with that. That's exactly what should be happening. It shouldn't just be like, well, there's that building and just desecrate that building. It's like, there's civilians in there. Go in there, get the right guys, pull them out, do what you got to do, and that's it. But also, even as I'm saying that, and as Vivek just said what he just said, you have to realize when you say heads on stakes, what you're really saying is you want someone to do that and then have that in their mind as something that they've done. And that's why I really want to play the Jocko and Tim Kennedy clip for you guys, because it's two guys who have experienced war, and you can tell in this clip, Tim is still really broken up from what he had to do, what he did by mistake. It's such a wild story. Let's move on. Tucker Carlson, Lex Friedman asks him what he thinks about the whole Israel-Palestine conflict. In America first is always Tucker's motto, of course.
It's not a debate next week. But I have to ask you just your thoughts, maybe even from a U.S. perspective. What do you think about Hamas attacks on Israel? What would be the right thing for Israel to do? And what's the right thing for U.S. to do in this? If you're looking at the geopolitics of it.
I mean, it's not a topic that I get into a lot because I'm a non-expert. And because I'm not, unlike every other American, I'm not emotionally invested in other countries just in general. I mean, I admire them or not, and I love visiting them. I love Jerusalem, probably my favorite city in the world. But I don't have an emotional attachment to it. So maybe I've got more clarity. I don't know, maybe less. Here's my view. I believe in sovereignty, as mentioned, and I think each country has to make decisions based on its own interest, but also with reference to its own capabilities and its own long-term interest. And it's very unwise for, I'm not a huge fan of treaties. Some are fine, too many bad. But I think U.S. aid, military aid to Israel and the implied security guarantees, some explicit, but many implied security guarantees of the United States to Israel probably haven't helped Israel that much long term. You know, it's a rich country with a highly capable population. Like every other country, it's probably best if it makes its decisions based on what it can do by itself. So I would definitely be concerned if I lived in Israel, because I think, fair or unfair, and really this is another product of technology, social media, public sentiment in that area is boiling over. And I think it's going to be hard for some of the governments in the region, Jordan, Egypt, Turkey, to contain their own population. They don't want conflict with Israel at all. They were all pretty psyched, actually, for the trend in progress, the Saudi peace deal, which was never signed, but would have been great for everybody. Because like trade, peace, normal relations, like that's good, okay? Let's just say. I know John Bolton doesn't like it, but it's good. And it's kind of what we should be looking for. But now it's not possible. And, you know, if you had like a coalition of countries against Israel, I know Israel has nuclear weapons and has a capable military and all that, and the backing of the United States, but like it's a small country. I think I'd be very worried. So there's that. And I don't see any advantage in to the United States. I mean, I think it's important for each country to make its own decisions.
But it also is a place, like you said, where things are boiling over and it could spread across multiple nations into a major military conflict.
Yeah, well, I think very easily could happen. In fact, probably right after Ramadan, if I had to guess. And yeah, I pray it doesn't. But again, I don't think you can overstate the lack of wisdom, weakness, short-term thinking of American foreign policy leadership. These are the architects of the Iraq War, of the totally pointless destruction of Libya, totally pointless destruction of Syria, and the 20-year occupation of Afghanistan that resulted in a return to the status quo. So like of the Vietnam War, their track record of the Korean War, even going back 80 years, is uninterrupted failures, one after the other. So I just don't have any confidence in those leaders to improve. When was the last time they improved another country? Can you think of that? Oh, the Marshall Plan. Well, you look at Europe now and you're like, I don't know, if that worked. But even if it did work, again, 80 years ago. So when was the last country American foreign policymakers improved? So if I were Netanyahu's in a very difficult place politically, impossible. I mean, I'm glad I'm not Netanyahu. And I'm not sure he's capable of making wise long-term decisions anyway. But if I was just like an Israeli, I'd be like, I don't know if I want like all this help and guidance. So yeah, I actually think it's worse than just having just returned from the Middle East and talking to a lot of pretty open-minded sort of pro-Israeli Arabs who want stability above all. The merchant class always wants stability. So I'm on their side, I guess. And they're like, man, this could get super ugly super fast. American leadership is completely absent. It's just all posturing. It's like people like Nikki Haley. You just wonder, like, how does an advanced civilization promote someone like Nikki Haley to a position of authority? It's like, what? Shh. Adults are talking. Nikki Haley, please go away. Like that would be the appropriate response, but everyone's so intimidated to be like, oh, she's a strong woman. She's so transparently weak and sort of ridiculous and doesn't know anything. And it's just like thinks that jumping up and down and making these absurd blanket statements, repeating bumper stickers is like leadership or something. It's like a self-confident advanced society would never allow Nikki Haley to advance. I mean, she's really not impressive. Sorry.
I just feel like you hold back too much and don't tell us what you really think.
Sorry.
So I think you just should speak your mind more often.
These are not, I mean, you can completely disagree with my opinions, but in the case of Nikki Haley, it's not like an opinion formed just from watching television, which I don't watch. It's an opinion formed from knowing Nikki Haley. So
look at that smile. Wow. She's weak, which, I mean, kind of. I mean, like right now, Trump is just like, he's just kind of like sweeping her around right now. He's just taking her to each state and he's just like, I'll sweep this, sweep that. You doing okay, dear? Okay, sweep Michigan, sweep South Carolina. But very interesting. The one thing that he said that I never thought of, maybe you don't want all that help, because the one thing I wrote down here is, when he said the quote of, they should kind of focus on what they can do themselves. Because if they don't, and they do take all this help, then don't they then have to, aren't they kind of controlled by the U.S. in a sense? Like right now, Ukraine, look into it. You can see it. Pensions are being paid by the American taxpayers in Ukraine. Salaries, the government's being held up. It's not just military. It's not just missiles and tanks and this and that. It's everything. If the money gets pulled, that $60 billion that they need, the reason that Zelensky's like, give us credit, give us this, give us that, they actually need it to keep the country afloat. What if Israel got into the same situation? That'd be a big problem. And I don't think they're anywhere close to that type of situation, but I don't know. If a war goes on long enough, you could end up in that situation. I don't know. But again, when it comes to war, I don't know what I'm talking about. Kid Rock doesn't know what he's talking about. Joe Rogan doesn't know what he's talking about. Vivek doesn't know what he's talking about. And Tucker made it very clear that he's not an expert on any of this. And he's made it very clear that he's very America first. But two people who actually do know about this are Tim Kennedy and Jocko. I want you to listen to this story. Very, very impactful story. Listen to this.
I reached for one of my frag grenades.
This is actually him reading Tim Kennedy's book about the time Tim Kennedy was, I believe, in Afghanistan or Iraq, and he grabs a grenade, and I'll let the story go.
Pull the pin and take aim at the tiny window 20 to 25 meters away. If this wasn't combat, my friends would be laughing at me at this moment. You see, I suck at throwing. I mean, I really suck. Yes, I'm a professional athlete. Yes, I can do all measures of physical activity at a level most people can't fathom. But you know what I never did growing up? Ball sports. It was so bad that when I joined the Special Forces and had to throw something to one of my teammates, I believe it was a roll of 100-mile-an-hour tape, they were so horrified that they began instituting football throwing practice as part of my training regimen. I might be the only SF guy ever that, as a new guy, in addition to the normal tasks of shooting, planning, and physical fitness, had to work on my spiral. But here I am, grenade in hand, with my team counting on me. And I launch it. And it is perfect. It isn't a lob that lazily floats into the window. It doesn't bounce in. It's a fucking Aaron Rodgers laser that flies from my hand and connects directly to that window. It is the best throw I ever made. In a weird, fucked up way, it is one of the happiest moments of my life. A grenade going off in the movies is very different from what happens in real life. It's not a giant fireball. It's not dramatic. It's a hollow thud. It's that late night sound of opening the refrigerator to see what's in there, and the watermelon rolls out and hits the ground. That's all a grenade is after you throw it, a little hollow pop. And after you hear that pop, you either want to hear nothing or you want to hear men screaming. You do not want to hear women or children scream. You absolutely do not want to hear that. Yet that's what I hear. My soul churns inside. The helplessness tears me apart. I want to take that fucking grenade back so badly. I can hear kids screaming. They don't understand why this is happening to them. I can hear mothers screaming. Mothers that are punctured by fragments of a metal and can barely hold their lungs. Their screams are the sounds only a parent can understand, of desperately wanting to help your children, but not knowing what to do to help them, or in some cases, knowing it is too late to help them. Every scream tears me apart. After everything I've been through, I thought my soul was dead. I was as hollow as the thud of that grenade. I thought there was nothing left. It all comes flooding back. I am a raw nerve of emotion, and each sound coming from that room burns me worse than anything that has ever happened to me. Shame, horror, and guilt at what I have just done envelops me. I have seen this before in others as an EMT, the drunk driver that has killed someone. They sat there on those street corners crying, trying to sort out in their heads the disparity between who they thought they were, a decent person, and what they had just done. But I cannot stop and cry. I have to move. Keller and I flow into the courtyard. With the PKM out of commission, the RG gets more aggressive, and I see the walls start tumbling down. Everything is moving fast, and Keller and I do not want to lose momentum. I flow right, Mike flows left. This mission never would have happened in Iraq and goes against doctrine in any unit. In Iraq, we had a whole company of SIF working together to clear buildings. A normal infantry would have at least 4 on a door, followed by another fire team right behind them at a minimum, with another squad or platoon in support. We have a whole compound to clear, and it's just me and Keller. That's it. When I hit the first doorway, I instantly see food everywhere. It's a kitchen. I can smell the tea kettle with the clove tea that everyone here drinks. It has just been made. I can smell right now as I write this. It's amazing how smell stays with you. You can forget details and images, specific words and conversations, but the smell of a moment is forever. Curry, clove. The screams are louder now, and I move toward them. I follow a hallway to a 90-degree turn, and as I hit the edge of that corner, I get the first traces of smoke and dust from the grenade. At this point, I'm in this room somewhere between 30 to 60 seconds from the moment it exploded, and the scene is awful. It is worse than I expected. When you throw a grenade into a building that has walls 2 feet thick, all that overpressure has nowhere to go. This isn't America where the pressure will break the drywall or blow the door off. Their bodies took the brunt of it. There are 2 women, 6 kids, and an old man inside. I am once again that kid standing on the street looking at a crashed church van, so desperately wanting to help, but not knowing where to start. Except this time, in addition to being the guy who so desperately wants to fix it all, I am also the guy who crashed the van. I scream for the ginginator to come and help. Why the fuck isn't he in here? Because there's no reason for him to be here. But I need this fixed. I cannot have this on my ledger. They have to be okay. He screams at me to come back and man the gun because he is running the grenade launcher and cannot abandon his post. I take one last look at the room. It is so dark. The floors are dirt and dust floats in the air. I am standing in a real-life nightmare, a horror film. The smell of death, emptied bowels, and vomit hangs in the air. The hot machine gun is right there. Someone was shooting it, goddamn. Who? The old man? One of the women? Someone else? Everyone that can scream is screaming. Some aren't. They aren't all going to make it. I did this. I am the bad guy.
I hate war. A couple of seconds before that, Mike Goebel, he as we approached that door that started getting disintegrated from the machine gun fire, can't make any sense of it. As we approached the door, I was on the right side, he was on the left side. I reached for the handle to push this door into the courtyard open. And I mean, athletically, Green Berets are not small people. Like, just bam, pops me in the center, and I fall away from the door as the door starts shredding. The machine gun fire just starts zipping through it. I don't know what he heard. I don't know what he smelled. I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was a sixth sense thing. He shoves me a heartbeat before the door just starts disintegrating. That's the door that I throw the grenade through. As he peels off to try and find Mike, comes up, and we end up clearing through that building. When that grenade goes off, it's just, that's it. And it's overpressure that shoots tiny little projectiles of shrapnel in every direction, indiscriminately traveling in whatever direction and trajectory that they have. That Iranian that was in that machine gun position had body bunkered himself with women and children. And for them, it's a win-win for them. We hurt civilians, it's a win for them, or they're protected by these civilians, and it's a win for them. They're a different type of evil. As I've been attacked about this, as if there was any bravado or braggadocio pride in what happened in this. There's not. It's absolute pain. But this is war, and as we have people that volunteer to go and do things, travel overseas, or go to Ukraine and fight with them. You've seen war, I've seen war, and I'm always just even in America where people are talking about real revolution, and I was bro, you don't know. This is war. This is it's the worst thing that we can do to each other. We do it.
A friend of mine did this show on the History Channel. It's now, they changed the name of it, but it's called The Warfighters. Mm-hmm. And I got interviewed for this show. Is to highlight Mark Lee, who was in my task unit, who was killed in Iraq. But it's, they interviewed us. He did a great job, the guy that put it together. And it's awesome. It's an awesome program. But there's this one part that they edited out. It's me talking, and they're asking me about war. I don't even know what they're asking me, but I do know what I said. I start talking about, if you're going to go to war, you have to have the will. And there's two wills that you have to have: the will to kill and the will to die. And when I talk about the will to kill, what I said was, you have to have the will to kill, not just the enemy. Because when you go to war, civilians are going to die. And if you think you're going to somehow avoid that you're so good, or that things are going to go your way and it's not going to happen, you're wrong. So if you're going to go to war, you got to have the will to kill the enemy. That might not be that hard to fathom or to figure out, but you have to realize that civilians are 100% gonna die if you go to war. And then obviously the other part of the will is the will to die, because once again, if you think you're gonna go to war and you're not gonna lose any of your friends, well, you're wrong. And you think you're not gonna lose any brave American souls, you're wrong. So this is an example of that. This is another thing. I learned so much from the troops that I work with, and
so I just wanted to play that. So, the reason I play that clip is because you can see what Kid Rock said was absolutely ridiculous, because he's a musician, he's a millionaire, and he's been a millionaire for 20 years, if not longer. So he doesn't know about going to the grocery store anymore, let alone going to war. When you say to somebody, even me, as I'm saying, the IDF should just have boots on the ground and go into the building and find the guy. What you're asking for is scenes like that, where it's still going to be some civilians, and, that IDF guy or that Green Beret or whoever is going to eliminate the target, hopefully, the terrorist, hopefully. And then they're going to go home, and then they're going to hear something drop, and their heart's going to race, and they're going to grab something, and they're going to have all sorts of crazy trauma in their head from the stuff that they have to do. So when the Kid Rock says, 30, 40,000 civilians at a time, you just heard a story about Tim Kennedy accidentally hitting about, I think it was a room of 10 people that were just innocent, and what that does to him. Later on in this podcast, he talks about how when he was trying to retell the story for his audiobook, they had to redo it 20 times because he kept crying. And I'm sure it's something that he thinks about. And later on in the podcast, he also talks about the ones that made it, the kids that made it. They were in the infirmary, and he actually had to hold one of them and help actually get them together. And he had to actually hold this little kid. It was a small kid. And he had to know that I did this. This kid that I'm holding might die, and I did this. So when you're saying, anybody, me, Joe, Vivek, whoever, whenever you hear people talking about this, those are the scenes that you're casually talking about putting people through. Those are the memories that you're casually talking about these soldiers having to go through. It's war, and there's going to be civilians that pass, but also to have the callous mindset of 30, 40,000 at a time, and you better get it the fuck together and you go against Hamas, like Kid Rock is saying. It's just very ignorant. I still like the guy. I love that he supports Trump and everything, but a lot of people don't think about what they're actually saying when they talk about war efforts, what's going on around the world. They don't actually process what they're talking about. My dad served. My dad was one of the lucky ones that just came back and kind of just resorted to alcohol and just drank a lot, because, I'm sure you come home. I don't know his whole story because I didn't talk to him much about, what he went through and when he came back. He told me one story about his friend getting shot in front of him, and I'm sure that was messed up, but, he didn't tell me much about the story, but you'd assume, you figure out a guy served, you're like, hey, have a drink. So yeah, he's one of the lucky ones, but it's not always like that. These guys go through a lot. So just for what Kid Rock was saying, even what Vivek is saying, we don't know what we're talking about. The best thing is what Trump has been saying. It's just peace. It's not a bad thing. You're not anti-Semitic if you think there should be peace. And you're not open for open air prisons or anti-Semitic if you think that that situation should just be peaceful. You're not a Putin supporter if you think that situation should just be peaceful. Peace is the best thing, not just for the regions that are involved, but for the soldiers that are involved. It's crazy what they go through. It's crazy. They're already putting so much on the line. And then on top of that, if they really have to go through to the full extent, they either pass away or, in Tim Kennedy's case, a quote from Tim Kennedy, have to deal so much death and do so much evil. And that's something that they kind of have to wrestle with for the rest of their lives, So I just wanted to make that video real quick, just so, Kid Rock, he said some really messed up stuff. He doesn't always get it right. He said that in the episode as well. He knows fully who he is, and, he says some pretty wild stuff from time to time. I'm glad Joe Rogan called it out and let him know that that's a war crime, and you don't want to commit war crimes, because what Jocko was saying, there's gonna be casualties. That's true. 100% there's gonna be casualties, but you don't go and look for them by the tens of thousands. That's fucking crazy. Other than that, guys, like, subscribe, share. I'm out.